Well, welcome to our post-film forum, Race to Alaska. I'm Gary Jobson here in Annapolis, and I hope you've been enjoying the film festival and specifically this film. I feel like I know all the competitors that Zach put together, and we have a few here to talk with this afternoon. It is 5:50 Eastern time in Annapolis, but out on the West Coast, it's 3 hours earlier, so a nice Sunday afternoon. Well, Zach, let me just start with you. And as director, congratulations. It was a great film. I've watched it 3 times, and I see something new every time I watch it. And I feel very connected to the characters in the film. Where let's call them our stars in there. And I just want to start with a couple quick questions, and we're going to talk to some of the competitors. So you ready? Because I got some bizarre questions for you. Number one. Why do we hear the Soviet Union national anthem twice in the film? I mean, it's kind of energizing, but why did you do that select?
Because that's what the race organizers chose to play from a loudspeaker the first year of the race as a joke, as a surprise, and then it became tradition. So that's the Jake Beatty original there.
Well, I thought it was good. Somehow, I had to go get on YouTube and listen to the whole thing and get the words to figure out what they were saying, which of course the words they were saying had nothing to do with the race, but it was kind of energizing and kind of fun as everybody's paddling their way out there. How many hours of footage did you have to screen and go through to put all this together?
My editor said that on our hard drive, there is over 70,000 unique video clips. So I don't know the number of hours, but it is too many hours, I would say.
Well, it's pretty good because, it's all high def. The drone footage gives you a nice wide perspective periodically in the film. And you get to know everybody along the way, and you're cheering all of them on. And it must have been quite an edit job. Yeah, I don't think I'd want to do paddle boarding all the way up to Ketchikan, though.
Well, that's Carl's department.
Yeah. So Carl, tell us a little bit about your role in the race and what's coming next.
My role in the race was just to finish it. So I in 2016, I think it was 2016. Yeah, 2016. It was my first attempt at paddleboarding to Alaska for the Race to Alaska. But the board that I had chosen to do it on, I stress fractured it badly on day one and didn't make it any further than Nanaimo. I had to pull the plug. And I was doing really well. I was right up towards the front of the fleet even on the second day. So that was a bit of a heartbreaker. And then kept training and custom built a board with Joe Bark down in Torrance, California for the race. It was built for this race, and came back in 2017 and succeeded in paddling to Alaska.
You could put a sail on that thing and go make it a little easier on yourself.
Yeah, I could, but I wanted to paddle it.
Yeah, well, you're my hero. All right, Gene, we're going to join you. And you got 5 of your crew there, which is very cool. Tell us where you are right now.
We are on our race boat right now. So this is Max to the Moon. She's gone to Alaska twice. It's a Melgus 32, very much a race boat and very much a day sailor, not really meant for overnights and long distances. But we've done a little bit of conversion and a little bit of human suffering so that we can sail her north every year.
Well, the Sail to the Girl, I think, gets 7 crew. How many do you get on Max? How many crew race with you?
So we had 8 crew in year 1. 7 went north to Alaska. Morgana was with us just for the first leg to Victoria.
Okay.
And then, but we've sailed with 7 this year. We're doing Washington 360. Since the borders closed, we have a race that's running here in Washington State. So we're likely going with 6 this year.
Does Buddy Melgas know that you're doing these long distance races on his boat?
He does. He does have an inkling of that, I believe. Yes.
Buddy's now 91 years old, still going duck hunting and very enthused about sailing. He's kind of my hero in this sport. And I bet he's feeling pretty good about it. So that's very cool. So some of those images, the unbelievable fast current that I watched there, and those whirlpools were horrifying. Do you, Carl, Gene, do you ever get stuck in one of these whirlpools?
We have, 2019 race, we were in a whirlpool so big that you couldn't really see it, but we were moving forward in Campbell River, which is a place where it feels like you're whitewatering your sailboat. And there's a lighthouse there, and we moved past the lighthouse, and before we knew it, we were going backwards again past the lighthouse, and this was a really big whirlpool. So maybe 5 minutes of backwards, and then we went forwards again, and then we went backwards again. There wasn't a lot of wind. We were biking like crazy just to try to get to the outskirts of it. We never got trapped in any of those smaller whirlpools that you see in the film. Thank goodness, because those things are brutal. But we lost a lot of time going backwards that day.
Right. Carl, did you ever get stuck in a whirlpool?
No. That's one of the benefits of being on a stand-up paddleboard or being as small as that. I mean, a kayak can do the same thing to a lesser degree, but you can get right on the beach, and in Seymour Narrows, actually, I did a short little portage there and missed part of that rip. But then where I started paddling from there, I was able to just stay, 5-10 feet off the rocks and, catch a bunch of little back currents and get through there pretty easily.
Well, that's nice. You get some reverse eddies going.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of that. The whole way up the coast is like that. Just about the entire way through Grenville Channel. That's the game I was playing too. Every point that you go around these little minor points, it'd be against me for 20 feet, and then I'd be in a little back eddy and I'd be getting flushed right where I wanted to go. So it's just this little sort of, stitching together all the little back eddies along the beach.
Yeah. So Zach, how many different power vessels did you use in filming this? Did you have the one going all 750 miles? You keep leapfrogging with different craft to do some filming?
We've done both. It's a small organization. I've worked initially for the race, so we have a lot of volunteer power. So we've had boats that have gone all the way north. We actually went on Carl's boat Ocean Watch in 2019, which was fantastic, and that went all the way north. But typically it'll be like a lot of smaller power boats in the lower, like southern BC and Washington. Then we station a crew at Bella Bella, one of the checkpoints, and there's a fish camp called Shearwater that's given us boats in the past. And so they shoot out and catch what they can around Bella Bella. And then after that, we're coming down from Ketchikan or shooting in Southeast Alaska waters. And then we've had volunteer pilots and helicopters as well.
Volunteer. That's
Yeah.
helpful.
It's pretty awesome.
One of the things that struck me is we saw some calamities along the way. One boat capsized, the boom broke, the bicycle mechanism fell off the back of the boat. I mean, and nobody seemed too upset about it. Why is that? Just because you're there with the camera, or it's just part of it, and we'll make do?
I mean, I personally think one of the aggregates in all the people that do this race is the sense of resilience. And we have racers right here, but I would say that you have to be open to things going wrong to even undertake this. Do you guys agree?
No question about it. I mean, the whole course is just this sort of pendulum swing, emotionally and psychologically, between when things are going really well and when they're not. And you just have to just plow through it.
Well, it looked to me like it would be some kind of emotional roller coaster ride. Gene, how do you make the decision between staying inside, where it's more controlled, or going outside? Maybe you have better wind and direct course, but you're dealing with really big waves and rough weather. So how do you make that decision?
Yeah, so we have the inside outside decision mostly north of Vancouver Island, although the race and the futures likely going to allow outside of Vancouver Island, but the islands north of Vancouver, inside versus outside, is really picking your weather and your currents. I mean, riding the currents is everything, I think, in this race. If you're with the currents and you're inside the islands, you can get a good push. But the weather, you can get a lot more wind outside the islands. So, you know, it's always a toss up. We play devil's advocate on this boat where each of us picks a point of discussion for inside versus outside. You know, current versus wind is usually the debate. So it's just kind of chasing conditions.
I remember at one moment somebody said, oh, we thought the current would be with us and the current's against us. A phenomena that happens an awful lot in the sport of sailing. The old expression, the weather's not usually like this here. Well, but it is like that here at the present time. So do you have I guess you don't have an engine in a Melgus 32. You have to leave the outboard off and.
Yeah, we pull it out. So it's we have an outboard engine. It's in the center of our boat, and we have to, for the race, remove our engine. So it comes off and it becomes our storage for our life raft and some water. But
how do you charge your batteries? You know, you got cell phones and some electronics. How do you do that?
Yeah, we carry an EFOY, which is a fuel cell. It's run on ethanol, and it's a really efficient system. So we carry that, and that's enough to power us. We've had also solar panels in the past.
Hey, Carl, do you charge your batteries? How do you do that?
For Race to Alaska, I carried a little solar panel with a battery pack, but I only had one day north of Cape Caution where there was enough sun that it actually worked. So the answer is I didn't really charge everything. I had to choose what I wanted the most and charge that thing. It was hit or miss.
Well, I kind of like the name. It's ominous, Cape Caution. You know, do you lose much weight, Carl, going and paddling all the way?
Yeah, it was a bit of a shock to me when everybody told me I looked skinny up. I lost 15 pounds on that. So just a little bit over a pound a day. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, I would say in year one, I lost 8 pounds. We biked for 75 hours of our journey up north. It's a lot.
Right, you have 4 biking at a time if it's late wind?
We have 2 bikes, so 2 at a time, and just tagging out, you know, when you're tired.
So Jane, can you introduce your group there?
Yeah, absolutely.
They're all quiet and looking good and comfortable.
No, like I'm the only one talking. You guys feel free to chime in. So this is our 2021 crew. We were the 2020 crew, but the race was canceled. But LA does a lot of our front sail trim, jib trim. She raced in the 2019 race with Sail Like a Girl. And then we have Alicia, who is sailmaker extraordinaire, as well as amazing foredeck. And then we have Lisa, who was also part of the 2019 crew and does all of our main trim. And then Krista has joined us for also the 2020 canceled race and 2021 race. And Krista, I think she's good at all things. So she's all across the boat wherever needed.
I think there was one spot where I saw you do a little wipeout. You had an A sail up and it ended up on your side. I didn't hear much yelling about it, but I found that kind of.
Oh, we don't yell. This team doesn't yell. No, we just get things done. So yeah, I mean, you know, we, especially in the 2019 race, we had a lot of wind that year and we were always sailing on the edge. Our goal is always to push this boat as hard as we can push it. And so sometimes that knife's edge goes a little bit over the edge.
I kind of like the comment that we don't tell each other what to do. We ask questions. I thought that was pretty good. So the next time I see a boat that's named Sail Like a Boy, we'll have to teach them to do that. What do you think?
Well, I think I love racing with this team of women. I think that we're all really respectful of each other. We trust each other's skills. We ask instead of tell. We're grateful to each other when we get things done, and especially when something hard happens, we recover really easily. it's amazing to sail with a group that's so supportive of each other.
I like the comment that, well, we just did a little cleanup down below and everything ship shape and you look, it looked like a total disaster down there.
Yeah,
We knew where what 70% of it was, maybe 60%. It was pretty
we
good.
color coded our stuff. So I was blue. I would, if it's blue was mine.
So when you get into a watch routine, how many are on deck? How many are down below? Because most of the time we saw most of you on deck, but surely you have more people sleeping half the time, or how does that your watch routine work?
We had up to 3 people at a time, depending on the wind conditions. There were a number of times when it was just an all hands on deck kind of situation. But when the wind was light, we would have as many as 3 people sleeping at a time. And we overlapped our watch system so that you only had one person getting up at a time or going down at a time. This boat is not built down below with any extra space.
No.
So when it comes time to get your Fallies back on, you can't be competing with anybody else. You can't even stand up down there. So we try to coordinate carefully.
Well, I noticed that you had really good foul weather gear, so boots
Yeah,
and foul
you
weather
can
gear.
Go to Alaska.
Yeah.
It's all about the clothing, right?
Does it
You have
get
to have
cold?
Weather. It gets,
It gets
really cold. Really cold. And this boat has no, there's no insulation. You've got the water up against the hull, making down below super cold. We have 0-degree sleeping bags that, don't even cut it. It gets that's probably one of the biggest challenges is how cold and how wet you are all the time. There's no getting dry and there's no getting warm, and you just go with it.
Yeah, I to quote Bill Clinton, I could feel your pain because I know how wet it is. I've done a little ocean racing myself, and I know what it's like. But then you get to the finish line, and a beer later, you're ready to go again, right?
Exactly. It's like childbirth. It wasn't that bad. We can have a second.
I haven't experienced that, but my wife has, and 3 daughters. We got 5 grandkids running around, so I've experienced it through them. Holy cow! Zach, one of the things I wanted to compliment you on was your graphics with the maps. They were very clean, and you could understand the race because it's actually geographically a very complex set of islands and everything. But you did that well, so well done. I'm used to America's Cup graphics like we use on TV, but I thought you did well with that. So well done on the graphics.
Thanks. Yeah, well, we also really learned making the film that like the race itself is the protagonist, and the race course is the one constant in all these different teams. So it was really important for me to like express very clearly where people are going, and we worked with this great artist Nina Sarnell to make these like really clean maps that were delivering you exactly the information you needed. So thank you very much.
We'll pass on to him. Having done an awful lot of graphics with my long career at ESPN, they're good, really. Thanks. Really well done. Not everybody will mention things like that, but I noticed that. Okay, so 750 miles. I don't care what kind of boat you're in. That is a long way to go. And I was intrigued that so many people seem to stop every now and then, either to avoid really bad weather or wait for the good current or exhaustion. So Carl, let's start with you. Did you stop a lot because you were exhausted or watching the weather, or how did you decide when you're out there and when you're not?
My strategy for this coast was, I made a whole bunch of, well, I don't want to call them promises exactly, but I guess I set some goals for myself, and my goal every day was 50 miles. And, going into the race, we've all done enough racing to know that there's a momentum that you gain the further you go. And there's a real risk when you stop that you might not get going again. And what I was doing was hard enough and taxing enough that I didn't want to go into Prince Rupert. I didn't want to hang out in Campbell River. I didn't want to go in anywhere because that's where all the comfort is, And so I held myself to that standard and just said, just keep paddling. And so 50 miles a day. And what I was trying to do was just work with the systems as they were coming in that year. And Basically, I was running a hurdle event. You know, I was looking at the weather 2-3 days ahead and just trying to mesh my movements with what I saw coming and with the currents that I had going. And so every day I was scrambling to get to that next window that I saw opening up 2 days ahead, you know, and it generally worked, you know. So the fewest miles I paddled in a day was 27, and the most was 72 or 4 or something like that. But my average was about 50.
So how long would you sleep for? What was a long sleeping period for you?
You know, by the time I got my miles done, and those took a different amount of time every day, depending on conditions and what I was up against. But on average, I was out on the water, you know, 12 to 16 hours a day. And, you know, making camp, you know, going, like, finding a spot for, first of all, where I could even get the board out of the water safely without breaking it or breaking myself, and a place where there's water that I could capture and all of that. Like, that all took a lot of time. So, you know, by the time I found that spot, got all my gear out, pitched a tent or not, filled my water, filled up all my fuels for the next day, got all that stuff done, and captured water and all of that, I usually had 4 to 6 hours in the sack before I had to get up and do it all over again.
I bet going to the bathroom was a challenge.
Not at all. That's easy. You know, I mean, your body gets into a rhythm, you know, and so, you know, whatever. I mean, I don't know how deep into that you want to get, but you know,
Not too deep.
okay, good. I mean, I'm pretty well programmed that, like, the moment I get up, it's go time. And once I'm on the water, you know, I was good to go.
Yeah. No, you're trying to you don't want to get dehydrated out there either. So you got to.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, you know, on that, you know, one of my sponsors is Hammer Nutrition, and I was religious about using their electrolyte replacement products to stay fueled and hydrated. And on that trip, 2 liters of water equaled about 20 miles. It was
Got
about enough worked out. Yeah.
That's pretty good. You know, I'm intrigued that, you know, one of the things you're nervous about was stopping and not wanting to continue the race. So that takes a little mental horsepower to overcome that.
I would agree with that statement. Yes. I mean, you know, paddling by, you know, Prince Rupert, and I mean, you can just, you know, 30 miles across the water or whatever, and you can smell the hamburgers, you know, it's like, you know, there's food over there and warm things and whatever, but just to decide, nah, you know, it's not what I'm here to do.
Yep.
It's not easy.
Yep. Zach, are we going to see some notable superstar, America's Cup, around the world racer, Olympians in this race in the future say, hey, I want to do that too?
I mean, I think that the more people see this movie, maybe we will, is my hope. I know we've had them off and on, the Bird brothers, like Trevor Bird's on the America's Cup team, and or was, I don't know if he is now. And actually Jean's crew, she had an ocean racer join. So I believe that, I think it's an awesome challenge. I think more people will want to do it. It's the kind of thing that, yeah, I hope it draws people out of the woodwork and they see how exciting it is.
So,
Yeah,
Gene, tell us about your ocean racer. Who was that?
Yeah, Nikki Henderson is part of Team Sail Like a Girl. She raced with us in 2019, and she's a Clipper Around the World skipper. She sails out of the UK. She also skippered Maiden for its first several legs when it left the UK a couple of years ago. So she's a wonderful sailor. I met her when she was here in Seattle on the Clipper Around the World race. She was driving the Visit Seattle boat, and we clicked, and I called her when her race was done and our race was ready to go. And I said, you want to come join us? And she said, absolutely. So she did. And, you know, wonderful sailing with her. What an amazing experience to race with her.
But the UK won't let her out right now.
I know, we're trying to get her here
The
for
US won't let
this
her
year.
in.
COVID.
I know this COVID thing, we're all trying to come to grips with it. And I've got a pretty good racing schedule coming this summer. I hope it all comes together, but it's unclear right now. But you have the added problem of going across the border, and then you got to go back across the border. So do you have to clear customs, I guess, at Victoria or Ketchikan? How did that work, Gene?
Yeah, that was typical. So in Race to Alaska, we have our first leg is the qualifying leg. So it goes from Port Townsend to Victoria, and we clear customs in Victoria. They let us ring the bell first, but then we have to clear customs. And then coming into Alaska, there's a customs officer that meets us at the dock in Ketchikan to clear us.
Or they get you up very early the next morning.
Oh, that's right. We had to go to the office in 2019 at what time was it, Ellen?
It was 3 hours after I'd
6
gone to
a.m.
sleep, so.
Really? That seems a little unfair. They couldn't do it at 10 o'clock in the morning or something? Yeah,
Don't mess with the customs
Don't ask
officer.
questions, just show up when they tell you to.
well, the woman who was the Coast Guard officer that gave that debrief that we saw in the film, you know, I was getting horrified listening to her there at a certain point.
Oh yeah, Susan Pickrell. She's amazing. She's got such incredible experience. She used to be the captain of the rescue hovercraft out of Vancouver, BC. It's like 100-foot hovercraft that they scream at 60 knots in, and she's done so much on the Northwest Coast. And she has been a great partner for the race, helping them navigate the rescue systems and the Coast Guard and stuff.
You know, it's kind of interesting. The further north you get, the less human contact you have, and towns and everything disappears. And it must be lonely. Gene, let me ask your crew. You don't see anybody, or we saw a couple shots way off in the distance. There's one other mast up there or back there. I mean, do you feel kind of lonely out there?
Not with a group of women. It's not lonely, but it's tough when you lose your signal, because we lose our weather data. We lose we watch the race tracker as much as the tracker junkies do. We're watching maybe more. We're watching where we are in position with other boats. And when we lose our signal up north, it's hard. We don't know where we are in comparison to other boats, because we're so spread out. We could be 100 miles apart and not know who's doing what and how they're doing.
Yeah,
So the race tracker, do you get the race tractor? You get to see that continuously, or do they just give you a snapshot every now and then?
we can see it, but whenever we have service, but there was a lot of time when we couldn't see it because we had no way to get access to it.
And it is a snapshot. It's done every like 15 minutes, I
Yeah.
think.
And some of those signals don't go through. Those are satellite signals, and some of them don't always go through. So it's kind of a trick that as a tracker junkie to check the last timestamp on whatever data you're looking at.
Good point. Do you use satellite phones, or do you run
carry-
cell phones?
Yeah, we carry a lot of safety gear, and that's in our safety kit. It's emergency only use, but we have one on board here. Not all boats carry them.
We
Wow.
carry a craft, and not all
Yeah,
boats
we
carry
carry
a
a life raft. We've got a lot of safety gear on here.
Well, I hope you never
You're
have to
on
use
your
it.
own when you get north. I mean, to your earlier point, Coast Guard can be 2 helicopter rides away. They have to refuel to get to where you are in some
Wow.
places. It's you have to be independent. You have to be able to rescue yourself in most circumstances. We carry a really good medical kit on board. We know that we need to be self-sufficient and prepared for anything. And I think, that's why when things go wrong, we've already approached this race with the idea that this is a really high risk and there's a lot that can go wrong. But if we're prepared for it, it is not a big deal. If we know what to do when, we can do it as safely as possible.
So do you do some training before the race? Go through things, man overboard drills, things like that?
Yep, we do it all. I mean, we're on the boat today doing boat work. That's why we're here out on Max to the Moon. So, we're just getting ourselves back together from COVID to get ready for Washington 360, which is coming up on June 7th. So
We do a couple distance races together as well. We have practice nights that we definitely do, and certain things that we want to make sure that we can practice, not just reefing, but we've got a whole list of stuff that we're looking
I would say in year one, when we had a very inexperienced crew, half of our crew learned how to sail to do the race. We were doing practices about 5 days a week for 3 months.
But even
Wow.
with we have quite an experienced crew now, but it doesn't mean that you don't practice. You still need to practice it all so that we can go even faster and we can be even safer.
Good. That's a good example. Zach, how do you stabilize your pictures out on the water there? Because they're pretty good. You know, I got the drone, I got the onboard, but you know, from the one of your chase boats, what stabilization methods are you using for your cameras?
We're using gimbal stabilizers and then GoPros with internal stabilizing equipment. We actually found that some of the coolest shots we've gotten are just from a GoPro, tiny GoPro mounted on a gimbal that's waterproof. The waterproof gimbal was a game changer for us because it's so rainy and so rough. And so some of my favorite shots in the movie are there's all these people in this big boat and then somebody holding their hand this little stick with a GoPro, but that it's a 4K beautiful image, you know. And it can get us close enough and close to the water and not affected by the spray.
Do you give the competitors some kind of seminar or shots you're looking for or how to film, or because the sound quality was so good?
That's thanks to Patty, who did the dialogue edit. Partly, he did a spectacular job isolating the voice because a lot of that's just cell phone or GoPro that has all of the world noise in it. But he goes in and scoops out all of the background noise in post. But yeah, basically, I just at the skippers meeting, I encourage people to film. Like Daniel gives a big speech to sort of explain the dangers and make sure people are on their toes and know what they're getting into. And I say, if you're getting into problems, please take your camera out. Or if you're having, you know, or actually if it's boring, take your camera out. Or really any time, you know. I think one of the hardest things is getting. I can't be everywhere, but really wanting people to share like how they're feeling in process, because I think people are we're accustomed to like putting the camera away from us and putting the camera towards like exciting things or big moments, but like to, you know, some part of why we feature some of the teams is because they turned the camera on when it was boring and they talked about that, or turned it on when they were frustrated and talked about that.
Oh, I love the shots in no wind when you're rowing or bicycle pedaling and the stream of consciousness going on. I thought that really added. So Zach, what's next on your roster? What projects you got coming up?
Well, I'm on a shoot starting today. It's like a short dance film, movement film, and then we've got a adventure series that we're working on, like a adventure athlete series. We have a satirical hybrid doc comedy, and we're also, Carl has an upcoming expedition he wants to do that we're in the process of documenting. So some of those things will be next.
So Carl, tell us what are you working on? What's this expedition?
There it is. He gets it. Nice.
Got right words right.
Yeah. Well, paddling the R2AK was it was such an immersive and life-changing experience. You know, I was actually still in the thick of that just a couple days before the finish, when the notion occurred to me that I'd like to do that for a lot longer and maybe turn up the volume just a little bit in terms of commitment and what it demanded of me. And the idea, it came on as I was paddling across Dixon Entrance, real long day, a little over 50 miles, you know, exposed to the Pacific, pretty serious, lots of shipping traffic. My VHF radio was dead, so I didn't have any way to talk to anyone. Anyway, I was out there doing that, and it occurred to me that one of the wildest and alluring places that I could think of to do a trip like that and turn up the volume in every way was the Northwest Passage. So that's when that idea came, and I kept it to myself for a good while, you know, a couple of years. I sat on that, or at least a good year, before I started talking about it. And I'm latched onto that idea. I won't let go. I've always been of the belief that when an idea like that comes to you, it's for a good reason, and you're doing the universe a real disservice by ignoring that. So that's what I'm going to do next. So I had I went up there 2019 thinking I was going to do it, and realized for a whole bunch of reasons that I wasn't ready yet, and maybe even the world wasn't ready yet. Just weren't ready yet. So it was a false start, and I came back and just went straight back to the drawing board, very much like the first time I tried to do the R2AK by paddleboard. So this intervening couple of years have been really important for a bunch of reasons. Mainly, I think it's the world, right? I mean, I think 2020 needed to happen for people to get interested in enough in the project for the support to arrive for me to even do it. And so, you know, Zach and his team, they've been with me ever since day one, you know, and supportive of this thing. And, you know, we're all the time, I'm finding more support for doing it, even within, you know, the Canadian Coast Guard and BTS up there in the Northwest Passage. I've got their support. Anyway, it's a 1,900-mile section of the Northwest Passage between Tuktoyaktuk and Pond Inlet on Baffin Island. So, you know, and at the core of all of this is this notion that, and this is something that I took away from the R2AK, was that, you know, it was a bit shocking to me, you know, how, you know, amazed or surprised so many people were that I did that, right? And from my perspective, it just wasn't all that amazing at all. I mean, people have been paddling this coast for a couple thousand, I mean, millennia, right? I mean, people have been paddling up and down this coast. It's been done in way less than I had. You know, I had a carbon fiber sled with a carbon fiber paddle and a solar panel and, you know, all the cool stuff. I mean, nobody's done, I mean, to my knowledge, nobody's done it in 2 weeks on a stand-up paddleboard, but still, you know, paddlers have done this for a real long time. And there's this connectivity with nature piece that was integral to the fact that I could do that quickly. And that's something that I really want to dive deeper into. You know, when you asked earlier, you know, about loneliness, you know, I was alone for most of that time. And, you know, it was such an immersive experience that literally when people came along and wanted to talk, I had no interest. It was more of an intrusion. It was unwelcome. You know, it was an unwelcome intrusion into the world I was living in. And, I learned a lot from that experience, and I really want to learn a lot more from this next experience. You know?
I think, you know, post-COVID, I like that phrase, post-COVID, which hopefully we're getting there. I think everybody's going to feel ready to go, and we'll live vicariously through you, reaching the great unknown. And even though you say, you know, many people have done it, and I know that's accurate, but nobody's doing it right now, but you are. So, Zach, I think you got a good topic and another film there. All right, well, I think we're coming down the stretch here. Gina, what's on your list this summer? You're all training, and what's your group got going? What's your next?
Yeah. Well, we're training right now for the Washington 360. So it's the race that is here in place of the Race to Alaska this year, but it'll be running consecutively with Race to Alaska, I think, in the future. So it's a 350-mile race. It's around our state of Washington, hopefully with some great competition out there. So we're really looking forward to that. And as I said, it kicks off on June 7th. If you want to be a tracker junkie after seeing this film, you can follow the race on the Race Tracker. Just look for details at Northwest Maritime Center's website. But we're looking forward to being in our backyard. It's a much more accessible and supported race, and I really hope that we get some delivery of chocolate chip cookies while we're out there.
We have our priorities. Come by and answer things. I mean, we talked about the apple pie at one point. Your mother can't deliver it to you, but somebody could randomly.
I'm just putting it out to the universe. I'm not prearranging anything.
I see. Fair enough. Well, I kind of like the $10,000 nailed to the piece of wood. And then second prize with the new steak knives. It was good. But, you know, most competitions, they have 3 prizes. So, Zach, you know, next time you talk to the organizers, they need, you know, a hat or something for 3rd place, you know. And I love the guy who said, well, you know, 10,000 doesn't go so far these days, but a new set of steak knives. Now we're talking here. That was pretty good.
Tim's pretty funny.
Yeah. Well, let me just say thank you very much for taking some time this afternoon and being part of the Annapolis Film Festival. And I know you had a very receptive audience here. And I have a feeling we're going to inspire some people to say, hey, I better go do this race. I'm not sure what kind of boat to do it on, but Melga's 32, great on deck, maybe not so nice down below, but that gets you inspired to be up on deck. And a paddleboard, holy cow. Carl, you're my hero. So, Zach, keep up the good work. I look forward to future productions, and I think you're going to get a lot of viewership. So thank you very much.
Thanks so much for having us.
All right. Be well, everybody.
Take
Thank
care.
you.